Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today I want to talk about Tawheed and the importance of Tawheed, the oneness of God, the oneness of Allah, and why the punishment is so stiff for shirk and not believing or associating partners with Allah. Also, I want to ask you all if you believe in Allah or if you know that Allah exists. That's something I want to cover, and by the end of this, hopefully we are not just believing, but we are convinced that Allah exists. And also I want you to think about your purpose in life. Do you have a purpose? So I want to start off initially with belief and knowing, and the difference between those things. When people say faith comes to mind blind acceptance of something without any evidence. It's something that you want to believe. With belief, the definition is accepting as true, feeling that something is true, and sure that it's true. Holding something as an opinion, your thought, or you suppose. Knowing is to be aware through observation, inquiry, and information. To understand, to have a clear and important and complete idea, to have learned. In other words, there's a huge distinction between blind faith, believing, and knowing. In the Quran, it says that we are convinced, we are confirmed of the truth. That's the difference and the understanding of a movement and a kuffar, and that they actually, a movement is more than a Muslim, and that a Muslim submits their will to the will of God. But a movement is one who is convinced of the truth of Allah. Therefore, they have evidence, they have understanding which convinces them of the existence of Allah. And the same is true with the kuffar, in that they have understanding, but then they don't accept that understanding. That's the difference between one who believes and one who doesn't, and one who is considered a kuffar, in that they have the truth in front of them, but they don't accept it. It's not just someone who doesn't understand and know Allah. So Islam doesn't ask for blind faith. In fact, in the Quran, it mentions people who believe in a religion just because their parents believed in it. And Allah says that is not a good reason to believe in your religion. You should have some understanding to be able to articulate it to yourselves, to other people, about why you believe in what you believe in. And there is a distinction. Some people think there's a distinction between truth and facts. Some people think you have your own truth. The facts are something that are established. The truth is the same thing. The truth is facts that are assimilated to come to a complete truth. When I say that Al-Islam is the truth, I mean that the facts and evidence convince me that it is the truth. I don't just accept it blindly. So, the first thing I want to talk about is the Tawheed and the oneness of Allah. And I want to go back kind of to the beginning. Let's say if there was a baby or someone who didn't believe in Allah at all. An atheist. Atheist means no God, meaning someone who doesn't believe in the existence of God. They deny his existence. Now, if we think about the universe and how it came into being, we realize that it is untenable to believe that there is no creator. Right now, the universe is 13.8 billion years old, and it is expanding, which means if we go back in time to the beginning of time, it'll be one singularity. And before that singularity, it did not exist at all. There was nothingness, and then Allah created everything. So before him, there was nothing. It was just Allah. So in a Big Bang or an explosion is something that is an effect. It is in a system that caused the universe to expand, and everything in it began to form. Every process and every system has a creator, has a cause. As Sir Isaac Newton said, the scientist and great theist said that every effect has a cause. So if the Big Bang is an effect, then it requires a cause. Now there are two kinds of causes. There is a mechanical cause and a personal cause. A mechanical cause would be if you had a pool stick, and the pool stick hit a cue ball, and the cue ball hit the 8 ball and went into the pocket. That is a mechanical cause. The stick hit the ball, the other ball, and then it went into the pocket. Now, every mechanical cause or every system requires a personal cause. A personal cause is something outside of that system, which is a conscious, free-willed being that causes that system to begin. Therefore, without a human being, that pool stick would never hit the ball and hit the other ball and go into the corner pocket. And in like manner, with the universe, without a cause, without someone to cause this would never come into effect. We would not be at the moment that we are in now. Before this singularity exists, there was no space and no time. There was nothingness except Allah. When he began to create things is when time and space came into existence. Time is nothing more than the measurement of events. And the first event that we know of is the creation of the universe. Now, some scientists postulate that the universe is imploding and exploding infinitely. As I said, you can't go back infinitely in time. You have to have a starting point to get to the point where you are now. To illustrate this, we can think about the number 3. You want to get to the number 3 using negative infinity. If you tried to do that, you would never even start, because infinity is no number. You have to have a starting point. So if you started at 100, you could get to the number 3. But if it starts at infinity, it never gets to the number 3. So we had to have a cause. And in fact, all scientists believe that we do have a cause. They differentiate between a religious cause and something that caused us to come into effect. So they believe in a God. They don't call him God per se as a creator, but they don't believe in Allah. And I want to eventually we'll get to that. But ultimately, there had to be a personal cause that started this system to come into effect. And this first cause, this personal cause, had to not have a cause. In fact, he created cause. He created creation. People say they make things and create things, but there is nothing, no being that creates things from nothing. There was no things, and then Allah created a universe for all of us, planets, moons, and stars to exist. When people, you can't even attempt to do as Allah did, because you can never find nothing. Allah is the only being that can create everything from nothing. And moving from that, so we find that it is untenable to believe that there is no creator, because we are here now, and someone had to cause us to come into being. And that cause or that creator also gave us a consciousness. He gave us a conscience as well, which means he is not just a God who creates us and then doesn't care about us. He is also a personal God. But there are people who are agnostics. Agnostic means that the root meaning is not to know. They're saying that they don't know whether God exists or not. As I said initially, you have to have a cause, a creator, for this world to come into effect. But these people believe in probability. They believe in the probability or possibility that this universe can come into existence without a creator. As I said, it is impossible. But even if they wanted to think so, we would think about life and how life exists. For life to exist, the essential building block is proteins. And there are 2 million proteins in the human body. And as I said, protein is essential for the human body to exist. And these proteins are made up of a combination of amino acids. It takes 50 amino acids to make one protein. And amino acids are like letters. If you think of them as the alphabet, A, B, C, D. And you put those letters together, they make a word. You put those words together, they make a sentence. You put those sentences together, 50 of those sentences make a paragraph. So one protein is 50 paragraphs. So it would be as if you wrote down letters and you threw them all down, and all of them were used, and all of them made a paragraph that made sense. It is impossible to believe that they were created or they were made without a creator. They were made randomly and mistakenly. When we think about probabilities, you say 1 in 10 chance that something will happen. That means it's a 9 in 10 chance that a thing will not happen. So if you had, let's say you have a quarter, and you want to throw a quarter on heads 100 times in a row, the likelihood would be, let's say, 1 in 100. that means 99 out of 100 times it won't happen. Well, for one protein to be made, the probability is a 1 in 10 to the 131st power, which means it is mathematically impossible. It is absurd to believe that one protein, in fact, we have 2 million in our body, but one protein came about without cause. So in fact, again, the idea that God is created, or that we are created without a creator is impossible and untenable to believe in. So, from there, also, I want you to think about your DNA. In your DNA is organized information. You know how if you went to a beach and you see on the beach it reads, Ismael Campbell was here. That is organized information. That are words put into a sentence for you to understand it. Now, as I said, in DNA, there is more organized information in there than the entire Encyclopedia Britannica. That means if you were walking in the desert and you saw the Encyclopedia Britannica, and the Encyclopedia Britannica encompasses all the knowledge that human beings have ever known, from A, B, C, D, aardvark, anteater, all the way to Z. Those things are on a microscopic DNA. Would you think, if you walked through a desert and you saw the Encyclopedia Britannica, that it came about by accident, or that it came about randomly? Only someone who is a fool would believe in such things. You have to believe in a creator who created this universe. Now from this, we have people who are deists. They believe that a God created this world, but he did not care about the world. He made it maybe accidentally, or he made it and he doesn't have a hand in how the world works or care about how the world works. Now, one thing about deists is that generally they don't believe in miracles or in revelation. Now, I want you all to realize that every human being ever born is a miracle. Our bodies are the elements of the ground, of the soil and water mixed together, yet we have a consciousness and we are all distinct. Imagine if by accident sand grew together and or metal grew together and made a robot, and every single robot ever was completely and utterly different in personality, in words they say, in the way they speak, in the way they walk and talk. It is absurd to believe that there is no creator, no personal creator. But we must realize again that we are miracles. We are walking, talking soil and water. As again, Allah can put power into anything to make it live. And we are perfect examples of that. We started off as a microscopic sperm, went into an egg and became a human being that has the ability, the capacity to change every other people in the world, to infect the entire globe, to affect the entire universe. How can that be on accident or by mistake? So again, they say you should not believe in miracles, but we are walking, talking miracles. And some don't believe in revelation. Excuse me. Can you see how much time we have? All right. I apologize. I got allergies and it makes me very dehydrated. So, they also don't believe in revelation. You know, people who believe in religion generally have a religious book. They believe that God communicates to them through a prophet and he reveals certain things to us. Now, what we need to realize is that when I said that there's organized information in our DNA, that organized information is discoverable, that means that Allah put it there for us to see, to discover. He gave revelation inside of us. So absolutely Allah has given us revelation. And every animal, every living being in this universe has what it needs in terms of the ability to get its resources, to get its food, to get its shelter. Human beings have one other need that other animals don't have, and that's the instinct to know and to understand. Why would the creator of this universe not give us revelation to know and understand and an example to follow? We don't have just instincts. We have a consciousness that tells us or leads us, points us, a fitra that points us in the proper direction. This cannot be an accident. There are some people who say that right and wrong is subjective. It's not objective, meaning that we make up our own right and wrong. Therefore, there is no real right and wrong. If you don't believe in God, then ultimately you don't believe that murder is actually wrong. You mean that we put laws in place, but in some instances, murder, rape, killing, and stealing is okay. But we just made it that way. It's an arbitrary rule that we applied upon ourselves. In fact, the people who believe in, who are atheist evolutionists, believe that we created these laws. We are nothing more than modern monkeys. Animals don't have rules and laws. Human beings have rules and laws because we're governed by what is right and wrong. And who better to make the rules than someone who is outside of their system, who is not harmed or benefited by these systems? If I make the rules and laws, I'm going to make rules and laws that benefit me and my family. Allah, who is not harmed by any of these rules, He's giving you a law, He's giving you a law and a rule that is to help benefit you and your lives. And everything that we do in terms of righteousness is a benefit to us. And I want you to think about laws specifically. As I mentioned, the laws of cause and effect, the laws of gravity, the laws of thermodynamics, all kinds of laws that this universe is governed by. What does that imply? A law is something that is applied upon another people or system. To apply it means that it is a conscious being that is doing the application. It is not arbitrary. The universe and the gravity and all these things that we're talking about, cause and effect, is a law that was applied upon us. Therefore, Allah, again, it is another example and proof that He does exist. And everything in our bodies, has a purpose. It's not just a function. Human beings are created on purpose and with a purpose. It's not just a function. I could use my nose to turn off the light bulb or turn off the light switch, but my nose is a function and its purpose is actually for me to breathe. So Allah made my nose to breathe. Therefore, everything in the universe, if we think about it in that aspect, we realize that it is created on purpose and with a purpose. Our heartbeats. When you are first born, your heart doesn't beat, and then it begins to beat. As I said, every process in every system has something to cause that system to begin. So, they say that our heartbeat comes from our mothers, and our heartbeat is in rhythm with our mothers until we're out of the womb, and then our heart beats on its own. Therefore, if we go back far enough, we go back to the first people and the heart beating before them. But who started the heart beating initially? Who started the life initially? You see, if we came from an inanimate object, if we came from the soil and the water, what can give life to something else other than life, other than the living and created and the living, breathing, living Allah, and He giving His breath into something inanimate and making it animated. So once again, Allah is the cause of all. So from deism, we go to theism. Theism is a belief in God, but it is a belief that God is a personal God, and He has something for us to do and a purpose for us to do. And as we see, as we move forward, we realize that God does have a purpose for us. But theists can come in different categories. You can be a pantheist, you can be a polytheist. Scientists say that we began as animus, meaning that we believed in the water and the earth and all these things to be God. And eventually we evolved into believing that the whole world as a whole was a God. And then we believed in multiple gods. We were polytheists. And then we believed in monotheism. However, there is volumes and volumes of evidence proving that we began as monotheists. The first people began believing in one true God and then devolved into believing in multiple gods. In an effort to attempt to get closer to God, they created gods. They said a human being was a god, or an elephant was a god, or a cow was a god, when all these things are not self-sustaining. If they had a beginning, they cannot be the being that has no beginning. They can't be the first cause. They can't be the first creator if they began in the middle. And they all need breath. They all need food. They all need water. At one point, they were babies, and someone had to raise them into the human being that they are today. And they all died. It's one thing that it seems not to be a coincidence to me. The people that generally people hold as God, almost every single one of them was captured and put in prison. I remember Yahweh ben Yahweh, his followers said, you can't put God in prison. Yet the person that they believed was God was in prison. It's only Al-Islam in which we have a God that is never harmed, ever, ever, ever. We absolutely have the truth. But at any rate, I'm going to go from polytheism, right? In the Bible, it says that Jesus said, you can't worship two masters, right? Meaning if you have two different gods, they will be conflicting at some point. At some point, one God will tell you to go this way and the other God will tell you to go that way. So it would be more sensible to have one God. But that's not necessarily proving that there is one God. In the Quran, it says, Joseph said, would you prefer to have many masters or one master? He's appealing to your conscience, to your sense of logic, that you would have one creator. And Occam's razor says that you should not multiply anything beyond its need. In other words, if it is necessary for there to be a creator, you shouldn't say, well, there are 10 creators, when there is no need for 10 creators. There's only a need for one creator. And in the Quran, it says that we realize that the universe is in harmony and unison because we have one God, one governor of all these things. That's why it's in perfect harmony. If not, you would have different gods lording over their their dominion over. Like if you think about the Greek mythology, and Zeus is in charge of these things, and there's a god of love, and there's a god of war, and all of them are conflicting. In fact, in Hinduism, they have a god who his wife was stolen from him. So he had to go talk to the monkey god to go and help get his wife back from a devil god. All these things are something that would be conflicting in your mind if you don't have the understanding of a one and true God. Now also, if there's more than one God, what does that mean? If you have two gods, that means that one God and the other God have a definite shape. Because in order to count 1 and 2, you have to say this one right here is 1, and this one right here is 2. So they cannot be infinite. One of them has to only fill this space, and the other one has to fill this space. So if you have 2 or 10 or 50, they cannot be infinite. There can only be one infinite. So again, Allah, there's the logical, the only rational thing is that there is one true creator. So when anyone says that there is more than one God, or there's an associate to God, or you have a son or a daughter or a grandfather of God, you are already doing something that is contradicting your own logic and own understanding. And one other thing I wanted to mention, I think I forgot to mention about the miracles that the deists don't accept, is that within our universe, I think it was 550 million years ago, there was a biological Big Bang. So there was not only a Big Bang of the expansion of this universe, but there was a Big Bang of living things. Initially, there were single-celled organisms, and then 550 million years ago, they blossomed into fully formed organisms. How can these things come into being? I want you to think about this, because sometimes people use evolution as a means to try to explain away God. Now, there are people who believe in God and believe in evolution. So evolution is not something that discounts God, but it's sometimes used in an effort to do so, because evolution really means just the gradual progression of human beings. And adaptation is also evolution. So if you're, let's say, the AIDS virus the AIDS virus was rampant, right? And there are some people who are immune to the AIDS virus. That means all those people who gathered together would never have the AIDS virus. So they would adapt to it, and that would be a form of evolution, in that they all adapted to this disease and they were not affected by it. But evolution is based upon mutations, and mutations are random, meaning there is no rhyme or reason to them. You know, there are people who has a 6th finger, or they have some mutation, they have something growing out of their nose or something to that effect. But when we are created, our DNA, the first thing it does is it replicates. When a man and woman get together, it starts to rectify it. It also has proofreading value in the DNA. So the mutation doesn't proceed and doesn't continue. So there's like a quality order inside of our body, and a system that is a quality order inside of our bodies. But if mutation exists, that means that at one point they say there was a fish-like organism, and then this fish-like organism came onto the land, right? So if it's a fish, that means it had gills and it could breathe inside of the water. Then ultimately it had to get onto the land. That means that it had to grow not only lungs, right? Because they said it grows gradually. So it'll be a little piece of a lung, and then it'll keep growing into millions and millions of years. There's a whole lung, and then there's a second lung. But not only do you need lungs, you need a trachea, you need a throat, you need all of these things all to come about at the exact same time. So in other words, even the belief in evolution demands a creator. There's no escaping it. Allah is the creator and sustainer of the world, no matter how much people attempt to try to disprove him. So the reason or the importance of Tawheed, the belief in the oneness of God, and why the punishment is so stiff, has to do with the idea of, that I said that it is recorded that Jesus said that you can't worship two masters. Okay, so think about this. If you are in America and you are following Russian laws, ultimately you will violate American laws. So if you are believing in the wrong God, ultimately you will violate his rules and laws. So that is why it's the most important law. The most important rule. That is why it's the beginning of our Shahadatain. And it's so important that we say it over and over again. It is one God. It is one God repeatedly. It's almost a conditioning that nobody can pull us away from this logical, factual thing. And that is the reason why it's so important. That's the reason why the punishment is so stiff if you die in shirk and disbelief in the oneness of God. So, and the purpose of our lives. One more second, hold on. I read this book called The Evolution Deceit. And in it they talked about it talks about our five senses. Seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, all those things. And it says that your hands actually don't touch things. Your eyes don't actually see things. And your ears don't actually hear things. And your tongue doesn't actually taste. All these things are electrical signals that go into your mind, and inside of your brain is where you are getting the understanding of this whole universe. Everything that we see, touch, taste, and feel is electrical signal. And to prove this, when you dream, when you're asleep, you have dreams, and you can see a vivid picture of everything, but your eyes are closed. How are you seeing it? You can hear a parade, but there is no parade, so how are you hearing it? What is really, truly hearing and seeing everything in this universe is our actual souls. Our human bodies, even our brain, is nothing more than a 3-pound lump of meat. It's something inside of us, our souls, that is experiencing this entire universe. So, we are being set on a stage, and we are being tested, as Allah says. This entire world and everything in it and every experience that we have every single day is a test. Everything that we see, touch, taste, and feel is nothing more than an illusion. We know that the truth is eternal, and our human bodies won't last, so it can't be the truth. It is our souls which would last. So ultimately, that is the truth. And that is our purpose, to be righteous in this land. If you think about your brain and your mind and your thinking, and you can smell something and remember something from 20 years ago. I think my wife just said something that happened last week, right? Or you can remember from a song, you remember something that happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Why is that? It's because in your mind, those images, those experiences are stored. And why do they have storage? Because ultimately they will come of value at a later time. Therefore, everything you see, taste, touch, feel, everything you have experienced is still in your mind, and ultimately you will be held responsible for every single thing you do, everything that you have done throughout your life. So therefore, you have to do what is righteous or repent for what you've done wrong, because you will I guarantee that your storage will come back to life. It absolutely will. That's the reason that it's stored. So our purpose in life, as I said, our consciousness is also something that science cannot explain. They can't explain why we are alive. They can't explain your dreams. They can tell you if you're under a CAT scan, they can tell you when you have a dream, but they can't tell you what your dream is. No one knows this except you and Allah. No one knows what your thoughts are. Right now, I don't know what you're thinking. I can only know that what you tell me you're thinking, but I cannot know for certain. Only me and Allah knows. And that is something that is immaterial. Therefore, that immaterial soul and that immaterial thought comes from the immaterial God. He is not something that is encompassed in this universe. On this day, people are commemorating the death and resurrection of their God. Fortunately for Muslims, alhamdulillah, that we don't have this dilemma because our God cannot be killed. Our God cannot be captured. At more than one instance in the Bible, it says that Jesus escaped death. Someone tried to push him, a large crowd tried to push him off of a cliff, and he snuck in between the crowd to get away. Allah can never be harmed in any way. So ultimately, this person was not God. But at any rate, he was saved even in the Bible multiple times, and he was also saved from the cross. That's another talk that I want to give, but I just want you all to be thankful to Allah that we are not in the same dilemma that other people are in. It takes a leap of faith, as I said. It is not logical at all to believe that the God of the universe was put on a cross and died. Even if they say the human part died, the death of a person is their body dies, right? Because we all know that souls live eternally. So if that human being was God, then God died on the cross. God of the universe. That means that someone held him and nailed God of the entire universe to a cross. Alhamdulillah that we don't have to believe in such things. Any questions? No questions? You got a question? Please ask me a question. Even if you think it's not a good question, I'm telling you it's a good question. Whatever you ask, I bet you it will be. What I want you to get from this, well, even if you don't ask me a question, what I want you to get from this and what I got from that book is I always knew that we had a purpose in life. And I always knew that everything that we did, we will be held accountable for. But it just helped to convince me, to confirm to me, because that's what movement is. That's what it is. It's a confirmation over and over again. When I read books and I see things about our creation, it just confirms in me deeper what is our purpose and what we are here for. I want you to realize that you, right there, you have a purpose in life. Every single person ever born has a purpose in life, and that is to be righteous. And we also have the ability to change other people, to change other people's thinkings. Obviously, they have to be susceptible to it, and that is on them and Allah. But the reason that we are given this truth is to attempt to give it to other people. It's not saying that they will believe you or they will accept it, but you do have the obligation to tell them of the truth and to live as righteously as possible. That's the thing I want every young person to understand, that they have a purpose. The creator of the universe created you for a purpose. I mean, it's awe-inspiring to believe that a being that can create everything created you. He gave you an opportunity every single day that you live. You have an opportunity to do something righteous, to do something positive, to affect people in a positive light. I don't like talking. I don't like talking in front of people. I kind of like writing. I do some writing, but I do this because I know people need to understand their purpose in life. There are people who are depressed. There are people who don't want to live their lives because they don't realize that God created them on purpose, and they're living, walking, talking miracles. There are studies that say that people that are really religious are less depressed, and they have less issues even in their job. They're less likely to be sick. All of these things, because if you ever have a test, right? You have a test and you know the test is coming. If you have the answers for the test, you can sleep at night. You're more calm. But if you don't know the answers to the test, it's a pop quiz and you haven't studied, that's when you get nervous. That's the reason people are sad, depressed, and nervous, because they don't know the answer. You have the answer. You can live your life in happiness. No matter what obstacle comes, you know that everything that you experience is a test. And you can pass that test and you will be living in bliss for the remainder of time, to time immemorial. Any questions? All right. Assalamu alaikum.